Welcome to everyone who is watching this session. It's a great privilege to be here. My name is Constanza Casquinho, and I would like to start by saying thank you to the organization of this exciting event, particularly Microsoft in the person of Rita Pissarra, who has been wonderful guiding me in getting this session ready. So without further ado, what will we be, I was going to say discussing, but this is a one-way session. So what will I be sharing with you over the next 10 to 15 minutes? This idea of starting from the bottom. How can we, even those of us who are not 18 anymore, who are not supposedly starting from the bottom anymore, how can we bring freshness to our work so that each moment that we are working, we can bring this perspective of learning and of starting from the bottom, if you want, in the sense of thriving, whichever circumstances we find ourselves. And particularly, I shall address our younger audience who is getting ready to join the labor force. So a little bit about me. I am a professor at the Nova School of Business and Economics, and this is what tends to happen to my students. I teach two classes at Nova School of Business and Economics. So I teach mindfulness in leadership, which is the session you are observing here. And also on my more serious days, which is most of the days, I teach strategy consulting, which is my background. I graduated in economics at Nova School of Business and Economics. And then I joined McKinsey afterwards, and I've been a consultant ever since with my MBA in between. So this is the final class of the semester. That's why the students look so happy. I think they were already considering holidays. So a disclaimer, the views that I will share during this session are my own. I am a professor at Nova School of Business and Economics, and I do not pretend to represent the official views of Nova School of Business and Economics. So these will be my own personal views. So let me start with a story that I share with my students, which I find particularly appropriate when we are joining the labor force, if you want, or joining a company getting out of school. So there was a man walking on a path, and he saw someone hitting rock with a hammer. And he asked, "What are you doing here?" And the person replied, "Well, can't you see I'm here breaking rock?" And then he continued walking on and saw a second person, same type of rock, same type of hammer, and asked, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, can't you see I'm building a wall?" And then he continued walking and saw a third person, same type of rock, same type of hammer, same type of activity, and asked, "What are you doing here?" And this third person said, "Oh, I'm helping to build a cathedral." So that's very much what I find helps us a lot when we are considering how to thrive in the workforce, how to thrive in the labor market. It's to consider the purpose of what we are doing. So rather than getting frustrated or demotivated by a task that may seem very repetitive at times, most of my students, when they join consulting firms, they spend their first months or even years working with spreadsheets and models. And some of them tell me how discouraged they are because they thought they would have more responsibility. And what I always share with them, and frankly, that I find myself also very important for my own motivation, is to consider the greater purpose of what I am doing. And an example of that is an initiative that we have recently launched here at Nova with my students, my consulting students, collaborating with a conscious capitalism initiative, where we consider how can we, in our learning and also when we join a company, contribute to the improvement of capitalism and to a more sustainable future to all of us, environmentally and socially wise. So rather than hearing me talk, I thought that it would be much more interesting for you as young students considering what to do in your professional lives to hear from people closer to your age. And so I've asked a couple of my former brilliant students who are already working what their first impressions were when they joined the companies that they work with, and what challenges they had and how they overcame them. So meet Diogo. Diogo Ralveiro was a brilliant student in my consulting lab with José de Mel Saúde already 4 years ago. And Diogo says that something very, very common in these brilliant students is that they, and it's also my responsibility as a teacher, and my colleagues, I know they go through the same challenge, which is we give students in universities a lot of responsibility and a lot of openness to share their thoughts, and we do a lot of co-creation with them. Then when they join, especially large and more traditional companies, they find that the companies do not offer them the same type of involvement in strategy definition or in responsibility. So Diogo found this, and he suggests here that self-motivation and self-engagement is essential to overcome that initial frustration of not being heard or not even being asked for your opinions. And he also mentions this idea that our process with a company or with the labor force, with the market, is like a marathon. It's not a sprint. So most of us, full of our young energy, when we leave school, we want everything immediately. We want this immediacy, especially these days with social media and e-commerce. So our brains are addicted to immediacy, and our careers, our development as professionals is more like a marathon and not like a sprint. So meet Fredrico. Fredrico Lacerda was also a brilliant student of mine in strategy consulting and in the consulting lab with Brisa, this one. And Fredrico worked with me in already 3 years ago. And he was actually sharing with me yesterday over the weekend. We were chatting, and Fredrico was sharing with me how he has so many ideas to get the organization that he is working with more agile. And Fredrico is working with one of the largest organizations in Portugal. So I was telling him how agility in that organization needs to be seen task force by task force and unit by unit, and that he can do a lot in the unit that he's working in to make the organization more agile. And we were problem solving together. So again, he suggests that self-motivation is essential. And so rather than being discouraged from the faults that you find in the organization you are working with, find opportunities to make change happen. So we finished our call this weekend with an idea already of a project that Fredrico can do with his colleagues in his unit. And then finally meet Mariana. Mariana Ortega was a marvelous, brilliant student, my first student in the consulting labs when I joined Nova 8 years ago already. So Mariana is very wise. She's a bit less young than the two boys, and but she has had more experience already. She's getting ready to change into a different life soon, and she's considering an MBA. And so Mariana has the same type of challenges. She says here how eager she was for doing the next step in the next adventure. So again, this impatience, if you want, this willing to run a sprint instead of taking it one day at a time. So Mariana then suggests mindfulness, which is very close to my heart. Mariana started practicing mindfulness with me already 7 years ago, and she continues, which is a great source of joy for me. And also she very wisely she recommends that you make your current opportunity, and frankly we could talk about relationships also, any situation we are in, instead of complaining that it doesn't fit our expectations, again, that we can bring enthusiastic energy and make the current situation, the current role, as exciting as we can. So this idea that the role is made by us and not by a formal description, which reminds me when I had my daughter, I decided to work part-time for a while. I had been working in the UK. And so I joined, so I started working as a freelance consultant, and I joined a company, and the formal role definition they gave me was very limited in a way. And the person who hired me, a brilliant mentor who is still a great friend, Dr. Luis Marques, he asked me, well, my only concern with you, Constance, is that you will be bored with this task. I had finished my MBA and I was used to a very fast pace. And I remember answering him, and I think that's when we started becoming really good friends, that I wasn't concerned about that at all, because I was sure that I was going to find in that role a lot of exciting projects, and that I would create them for me, which is what I ended up doing. And so this idea that Mariana shares with us, that we make the roles, we make the excitement. So getting close to the end of my presentation, or my sharing with you, I just wanted to bring a little bit of structure to what I've been sharing, and recall these top 10 skills that the World Economic Forum published recently. And these skills, the World Economic Forum groups them into problem solving, self-management, working with people, and the use of technology. Being a consultant, I tend to group these skills all into problem solving. I see life as a continuous opportunity for us to solve problems, hopefully to solve them in a way that adds value to the world, to others as service. And so I tend to group the problem-solving skills into a first phase where we identify the problem and where analytical skills are essential. A second phase where we create the solutions, hopefully co-create the solutions, where creativity is essential. And then a third phase where we implement those recommendations, those solutions, where empathy and relationship with others is essential. All this supported by technology, preferably from Microsoft. So I have a lot more detail here about these topics, which maybe we can leave in the presentation if you're interested in discovering more. And a final word I would like to leave with you is a story of the good wolf and the bad wolf. So oftentimes we feel like there are two wolves fighting in our hearts. One wolf is a wolf scared, feeling like he's not competent enough to solve the problems. A wolf that gets demotivated. And then there's another wolf inside our hearts that says, usually with a quieter voice, you can do it, you can be the change you want to see. And which wolf wins the fight in our hearts? Well, my suggestion is that it is the wolf that we choose to feed. And for choosing which wolf to feed, my final word of sharing is that we become very acquainted with the contents of our minds, so that we can master our minds instead of being mastered by them. The mind can be a great servant, but a terrible leader. So let's master our minds. Mindfulness is a great tool. This is the mindfulness class that I teach here at Nova. And I will love to hear from you. So you have my contacts. Please send me an email or find me on LinkedIn. I look forward to being in touch. All the best.